Okay, I want to talk about my favorite city in Japan, which is Kyoto. That is the city I live in right now. And I've been in Japan for 10 years. I've lived in 3 different parts of the country. The first one being Shimane Prefecture, which is a little far out in western Japan. I've lived in Tokyo as well for about 3 years, and I lived in Kyoto. And I have to say, of all the places I've lived, this is by far my favorite city, and I will explain why. The first reason, of course, is that it's a beautiful city. There is so much to do here. I know it gets a reputation for being very touristy and stuff, but tourists come here for a reason. Like, it is a really nice city to visit. There is so much to do. You know, lots of beautiful attractions like the temples and shrines and stuff. Visitors to the city tend to gather at specific areas like Fushimi Inari Shrine, Arashiyama area, Kiyomizu Temple. Yeah, like those places are amazing, and they can get a little bit crowded, of course, but you know, you don't have to go to those places. Like, there are so many other lesser known attractions that the city has. And the entire city is just so clean, organized, and just really like well maintained, I think. You know, which makes living here very comfortable, and also visiting here is always a great time too. Another thing I really like is that I think Kyoto has a really good balance of city life and nature. Kyoto is, like, by all means, a major city in Japan. Like, there are several downtown areas where a lot of people gather. There are tons of shops and restaurants, tall buildings everywhere. And you know, if you like the hustle and bustle of a big city, Kyoto has that for you. At the same time, though, if you find city life to be a little bit exhausting, you know, if you just want to kind of just get away from it all for a bit, Kyoto has very easy access to nature as well, and it has a lot of places where you can relax. Like, for example, my favorite part of the city is the Kamogawa River, which is basically a giant river that just kind of runs through the entire city from north to south. And it's a place where people can just gather and relax. Like, people do everything there. Like, people go there to have picnics, go jogging, ride their bikes, practice their instruments because they can make as much noise as they want at the riverbanks. No one's going to complain about it. A lot of people go there to play sports. They have like dance practice. Like, it's just a wonderful public space that everybody is free to use, and it's so relaxing. And also, Kyoto is surrounded by mountains. So, you know, if you like hiking, you just want to get away from the ground and you know, get some fresh air. It's so easy to find great places to hike. When I was living in Shimane, which is kind of considered a more rural part of the country, it was very relaxing, but sometimes I just found that it wasn't really quite busy enough for me. You know, I wanted to feel like a little bit of, you know, big city energy, and that was a little bit lacking. And meanwhile, in Tokyo, which is on the opposite end of the spectrum, it was a little bit too crazy sometimes, and it was kind of hard to find places to go and just relax and get away from it all. But living in Kyoto for over 3 years, I've never really felt that way. Yeah, like, I can pretty much choose how I want to spend my days, you know. Like, if I'm feeling a little like high energy, you know, I can go to a place in the city that matches that energy. And if I just want to spend the day a little more quietly, I can go find something that matches that as well. So it's really perfect for me. Another great thing about Kyoto is the location. It is located in the Kansai area of Japan, which, you know, features amazing cities like Osaka, Kobe, Nara, and Shiga Prefecture, which is Kyoto's neighbor. That's a little lesser known. There's a lot to do in all of these cities. You know, Osaka is one of the biggest cities in Japan. It rivals Tokyo in terms of scale and just the sheer number of things that you can do there. So if I ever feel like Kyoto it doesn't quite have what I'm looking for, it's pretty much guaranteed that I can find it over in Osaka, which is only an hour away by train. You know, Kobe, Nara, and Shiga too are also very easy to access by train, so you will pretty much never run out of things to do if you live here. Another great thing about Kyoto is that it is a very compact city. It's not like Tokyo, which is kind of like overwhelmingly huge and spread out. It's compact, and thanks to that, it's so easy to get from point A to point B. Public transportation, it's not as comprehensive as, Tokyo, I would say, but it's good enough. Like, I do not need a car here. I've never ever thought that I would need a car because it's just not necessary. And on the other hand, biking is fantastic here. Because the city is compact and pretty flat, it's very easy to bike from place to place. And usually you can get wherever you want to go to in like less than 20 minutes, just because everything's so close together. And because the city is not so busy outside of specific areas, of course, biking in the city is really pleasant. And biking along the river is one of my favorite things to do. It's so nice and so relaxing. Another great thing is that the cost of living here is way cheaper. Tokyo is the most expensive city in Japan by far. Renting a studio apartment can cost anywhere between like 70,000 yen per month to well over 100,000 yen per month. Of course, it varies a lot based on where you live and how new or how big your apartment is. But in Kyoto, the rent pretty much falls within the national average, which is more around like 40,000 to 60,000 yen, I would say. If you're living in like a more fancy part of town, it could go up to maybe 70,000, but that's uncommon. I think most people who live here in studio apartments pay around the 50,000 yen per month range or less than that. I like to give an example. Like when I lived in Tokyo, I was in a fairly nice neighborhood in a studio apartment that was about 25 square meters. And that costed just a little over 100,000 yen per month. In Kyoto, I've lived in a couple different places, but the first place I lived was actually a detached house. A small one, but it was like by all intents and purposes a house with 2 floors, living room, kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and even an attic. Way more space than I needed living by myself, but for that much space, I was only paying about 85,000 yen per month, cheaper than my little tiny apartment I had in Tokyo, which is incredible. Had I decided to go for a more like normal living arrangement with like a studio apartment, I could have gotten it under 50,000 yen per month pretty easily. It is a lot easier to just live like cheaply here if you want to. Obviously, this depends on a lot of things, like the average wages in Kyoto, if you work here, of course, are lower than they are in Tokyo. But in my personal experience, I found that living here, I've been able to save a lot more money and just not have to worry as much about finances and stuff. And finally, the last thing is simply that Kyoto just has a really chill, relaxed vibe, I think. Like the whole city, everything here moves at a much slower pace than it does in the big cities. Everyone, people seem a bit more relaxed. I think people are on the whole a lot more friendly than they are in Tokyo. In any big city really, like whether it be Tokyo or New York, London, people tend to be just a little more, on edge. I think that's kind of unavoidable, just given that there's so much stimulation every day and just so many things going on. People kind of have to just learn to shut out the outside world and focus on themselves. I totally get that, but I don't feel like that's really a thing here. People just have a little bit, more time and more energy to spare, which has made it a lot easier to just get along with people and make friends. And that part to me is quite valuable. So yeah, so if you're thinking of coming to Japan for vacation, I definitely recommend coming to Kyoto. Some people will tell you that it's a little overcrowded, overrated. I don't think that's the case. I think that this city has something for everybody. And if by chance you are thinking of studying in Japan or even coming here to work and you have some choice over where you want to live, I really recommend giving Kyoto life a try. It's been fantastic for me and I plan to stay here. So yeah, that's just my perspective, but I hope it was interesting for you if you wanted to know what it's like to live here. If you have any questions about the city or about living in Japan in general, please drop me a comment and I'd be happy to answer you. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.